What's up, everyone? This is Ashby, and today we're going to be fossil hunting, but it's not going to be in Charleston, South Carolina, or the United States for that matter. My wife Tabitha and I flew across the pond over to England and embarked on a journey to collect 180 million year old ammonites from about halfway up the English countryside. So we took the high-speed rail here up to Yorkshire, the Yorkshire coast, and drove into the heart of Whitby specifically. So this is kind of a hotbed for Jurassic fossils within England. There's some incredible lodging and accommodation options up there, and pretty much around every corner you have this incredible view of the town of Whitby. Now, this was a scouting mission that we were taking to go on up and basically see what there is to find, if we can find some pretty cool ammonites, and if it would be feasible and fun to take some clients over there in 2026. So we're going to be documenting a little bit about our journey, showcasing some of the beautiful scenery and some of the world-class fossil sites over here, along with incredible 180 million year old fossils that we're cracking open in rocks that have not seen the light of day. So Whitby itself is absolutely stunning, from the North Sea to the headlands to the moors to the city itself. Lots of great food to eat, so that first night we kind of set out and tried to find somewhere. Wound up finding a nice little tavern that had pizza and a nice selection of craft beer. And here you can see me doing my worst beer pour in my entire life. I promise in my 15 years of pouring beers, I have poured one better than this. And of course we had to film this one. After that jet lag beer pour, we were well rested and ready for our first day of fossil hunting. So for this one, we drove up to Runswick Bay, which has this incredibly steep road driving down into the bay. The cliffs are between 200 to 600 feet tall, so you are driving down quite a grade. But once you're down, it's a relatively easy walk out onto the beach, and that's where these incredible fossils are washing out. Literally, a tenth of a mile once you step foot onto the beach. The scenery out there is just absolutely incredible. You have these amazing sandstone boulders, shale slabs, and, the hidden ammonite treasures within. So we hiked about a mile and a half to get down to our primary hunting locality, where we're looking for these nice big gravel beds basically interspersed in between all of the larger boulders. We were greeted by an incredible waterfall at the end of our hike, and then some of these ammonites are literally just sitting right on top of the beach. So you just have to be lucky, and you just have to know what you're looking for. Some of them are water-worn, so you can see them exposed here on the edge of these pebbles. And others are going to be completely concealed in nodules. And we're going to spend a decent bit of time basically picking up rocks that we think have fossils within them, and then cracking them open. And sometimes we'll get lucky, and sometimes we might not. And that, I think, is what really makes this style of fossil hunting incredible and fun. It's a little bit like gambling. You never know what you're going to get, and you always want to crack open another rock.
Well, we're at the end of day one, and we picked up a decent number of nodules here. This is perhaps the biggest and most promising. We have a nice ammonite poking out of the end right there, and then there's another one right here, and believe it or not, another one right there. Now, we spoke to some locals. They said this one might be a little crumbly, so we'll probably use it as a good practice nodule. Got a couple others here. We don't know if there's anything in them as well, so might give them some practice taps. See if we can't get our chops for breaking open nodules. All right. Well, let's see. Don't have a lot of hope for this one. I think it's one of those pyrite. Oh yeah, the little pyrite nodules that shine up into the little quote-unquote golden cannonballs everyone talks about.
Okay, so I definitely learned a lot about splitting open ammonites, and this was a pretty big learning curve for me. These are literally the first ammonite nodules that I have ever split open. So you're getting the raw, unfiltered look at my learning process here, and I think it's safe to say by the end of our trip, I had become rather proficient at getting a nice split on many of these nodules.
Part of me thinks it might be a coprolite, but let's see. Oh, that's pretty cool. We got lots of little teeny tiny ammonites in there, like a little deathbed of them. Yeah, all right. Let's see what our next one looks like. Again, something running through the middle there. Oh, hey, look at that. Wow. So that means, yep, there's our negative. Wow. That's split very, very nicely. It looks like there's probably another right there. Might leave this one. It looks like there's just a little bit. Although maybe another one there. We'll give it another tap and see. But that's fantastic. All right. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Well, if it is the killed one, it's the rest of it isn't in there. All right, count that one a win. We met a nice gentleman and his son out here on the beach. They gave us a couple to split open as well. That one, very nice little, most likely Dactylioceras in there. Hey! All right. Well, he suspected the inside might be a little rotten, and he was right. This is one I found. Looks like the ammonite got cut halfway through, perpendicular to the length of it. Probably going to be another rotten one. Let's try to get on this guy. There's definitely marks to this. I obviously don't have it yet. Yeah, there's the edge. Right there. All right, here's another cool thing Tabitha found. We definitely have something running through here. Looks like it should split pretty easily. I think we'll take this one back. I want to double check and see if it might be one of the front mouth guards of a larger ammonite, or if we're just looking at one of the other bivalves from this area. All right, this is the one Tabitha found. Looks like a really good nodule. We can see the keel has been worn away, showing an ammonite inside. Should split rather nicely. Hey, all right. Here we go, we'll do a reveal. Whoa, look at that. That one still has some of the pyrite on it too. That's beautiful. That's what we flew over here for. Some 183 million year old ammonites. Awesome. So we don't want that ammonite to get damaged, so we're going to wrap around a little bit of electrical tape like that. That'll keep it safe for the journey back.
Did I win?
So far on our splits,
So when we first started out, we knew what we were looking for. We watched a lot of videos, and we were relatively confident with our ability to spot, an obviously spiraled ammonite on the beach. But the real trick to the approach is looking for that hidden ammonite. So ones that are on edge at the bottom of rocks, ones sitting in the bottom of tide pools. We slowly started getting that better eye. That search image just got more honed down within our approach. And so on our hike back, we actually found so many more ammonites than we did on our hike out. And that's when the splitting really came into play that made day number 1 fantastic.
all right, we just finished our walk back through all of the big boulders over there. And on the way, it's definitely apparent that our eyes are more trained up now because we've got quite a few nodules here, some promising, some might just be empty, but we're going to crack them open, hopefully see some good finds. Definitely have 4 here with ammonites. We have the keels exposed on the edge. And some of these I wonder if they're too far gone for most serious collectors, but for those of us who've never found them before, we're pretty jazzed about them. And then these 2, I got this guy out of a loose boulder of shale, and I think it's going to be one of those pyrite. It's essentially like the phosphate over here. It looks good, but it has nothing. And then Tabitha found this really, really big one, which is really exciting. It would be super cool if there's a big giant ammonite in the middle. We're going to do our best to crack it open. We might need a bigger sledge on one like this, but we will see. So, safety first. And let's start with one of these promising ones. Let's give this guy a little tap. I think we got a better tapping block here this time too. So, let's see, nice and easy. Theoretically. There it is! Hey! Ah, that's great. Beautiful. Probably Dactylioceras. It's like the reef shark over here, the super common species of ammonite. But that's a really nice one. Next up, let's go with this guy. He looks pretty crumbly. Might just try a standard tap on this one. Oh, yeah. Definitely crumbly. That just popped off. Well, easy enough to glue back on there. It's a hard dilemma. What do you do on things like this? There, but I can go in now. Hey! All right. I call that a win. Let's see this thing for the first time in 183 million years. Wow. Glad I didn't give up on that one. that is what we came here for. That is amazing. And it's just such a, look, it's such an unassuming rock on this side, but then it's holding a treasure like that. All right. Sweet.
So some of these ammonites split rather well and others did not, and this one right here is a good example of an ammonite that did not split well, but it did prep out well. So if you want to get a really nice image of how this ammonite looks once it got cleaned up, we actually took this one back to Charleston and took it into the lab and used a teeny tiny little jackhammer essentially to remove all of the rock covering this ammonite. So if you want to see that, stick around until the end of the video.
This one should be good. Oh yeah. So, look at that. Wow. Yep, this was a good day one. All right, well, best for last. All right.
Guaranteed to be nothing.
Guaranteed nothing or best find of the day? Whoa!
Heck yeah!
I'd say best find of the day. Tabitha for the win. Wow.
I may not be a paleontologist, but I do know how to find fossils.
That's right. Oh man. Well, I think the hardcore people that prep these would take this part, but I think for our luggage sake, we'll take this half. That's amazing. All right, let's see what you got. Wow.
Now, of course, one big aspect of traveling is the cuisine, and we came across this place called Humble Pie and Mash that we absolutely fell in love with. Probably hands down one of the best meals we ate in Whitby, so we're definitely going to be taking our clients back here whenever we bring them in November of 2026. One of the hardest things that I've always found as a photographer and now videographer is capturing scale. So our second day of fossil collecting found us hiking down one of the steepest paths of the entire trip. We headed over to Port Mulgrave. It was definitely hands down the prettiest site that we visited out of all of them. The cliffs were incredible. The colors of all of these pebbles with the ammonites mixed in between just really drew your eye in and immersed you in this entire experience. The green of the algae on the rocks to the clear water in the tide pools. The fact that we're literally just handling 183 million year old fossils, you know, it's just another skipping rock out there on the beach.
So we're in a really good stretch of pebbles right now. And Tabitha's on a hot streak. Just found another. Let's see what you got.
Looks like it might be fun.
Ooh, that's a pretty one.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be wonderful.
Now look.
Oh, wow. Geez, yeah, we're definitely in a good stretch now. All right, we're going to do some eye training here. See if you can spot the ammonite within this frame. Go ahead and pause the video now to get a good look from afar. This is going to be hard mode. Now let's go for medium. And easy. Look at that. Beautiful little ammonite right there. All right, so we've just finished day 2. Got a pile of ammonite nodules here that hopefully have something in them. Let's see, a lot of these probably have nothing, but let's start. So we have some in there. A few ribs of the keel showing there. See how easy he'll split. All right, we got a good split. For the first time in 183 million years, beautiful ammonite. This one looks very promising. It has that classic hamburger shape. Oh, got the edge showing right there, so hopefully that wasn't, oh no, that one is in there. Okay, right here we have the edge of the ammonite, so hopefully this guy will split nicely. We'll rely on that natural junction between the nodule and the ammonite to split it. Oh, well, here comes the middle. Jeez. Well, Mike could try and split the other half off of this one. We'll see. Something we've noticed today with a lot of these is they have these big calcite pockets on the inside. So a lot of these kind of tumble around and are half exposed in all of the shingle on the beach. So this one might be destined for that as well. But let's see if we can't get this other half off of there. Look at it. Other side. Yeah, it's still there. Little crumbly though. I think we will let someone else appreciate this one, as our suitcase only has so much weight it can take. All right, another kind of hamburgery shaped one. Let's see. That one might have some coprolite in there. I bet that's a little fossilized poop from the Jurassic. That would explain the irregular shape of this nodule. That's fun to see. Got some pretty ones here. Nice big one with a little bit of rock on the backside, so let's see if that won't come off. All right. That looks like a good split. Look at that. Parallels the entire edge. And boom. That's a fantastic, most likely Dactylioceras. Awesome find. All right. Oh yeah, we got another good split. Look at that beauty. Wow. For this little guy, he might present a bit of a problem. Again, we have that classic hamburger-shaped nodule. We can see the edge of that keel running all around that one side.
sometimes there's a method to the madness. Look, it's a nice ammonite, kind of.
As the sun rose on our 5th day in Whitby, we chose to head out to the Saltwick Bay locality, which is one of the closer sites to town, and it was the chilliest morning of the bunch. I think it dipped down into the upper 30s for us, but the sun was out and it just made the day all that more spectacular. These views are just incredible. I can never get over seeing the cliffs, and we started spotting ammonites right away when we set foot on the beach. So lots of them at this site are hiding underneath boulders, so we spent a little bit more time kind of crawling around these furniture and car-sized hunks of sandstone and shale. We found some new fossils, so this one is a belemnite, or kind of this internal pointy bit inside a prehistoric squid-like creature, which of course is a relative of the Ammonites. And Tabitha had a really good eye here and spotted this little pairing of 2 Ammonites. We think there's one hiding in the base of this one, and that should prep out really nicely. A lot of them at this site are really tumbled and exposed, but there were some little chunky bits hiding amongst the smaller shale as well, kind of like this trio of finds, all within a couple feet of each other. We saw some other nodules that some fossil hunters that beat us out had split open, and on some of these it was really hard to tell that there would have been an ammonite in there. We picked up one that someone had left for us, kind of like we left a couple from our previous days, and even managed to find a chunk of Whitby jet pictured here. So that is a basically gemstone grade version of petrified or fossilized wood. Lots of negatives from where the rock had popped out of ammonites, and lots of walking. We walked around this site a fair bit, past this really cool old shipwreck. The tide pools offered lots of opportunities for checking out the wildlife, hanging out in the intertidal zone. We saw lots of coral and algae and seaweed and little critters like limpets and barnacles. So for the splitting portion of our Saltwick Bay hunt, we quickly found out that these nodules don't split anywhere near as cleanly as those from our prior 2 days of hunting. I basically fractured a decent number of the ammonites whenever I split them. A lot of the rocks still stayed adhered in the middle. These outer bits got broken off, and ultimately we just kind of walked away with the ones that had been naturally prepped out by the ocean. We didn't want to bust up any more, and so just kind of appreciated the bits that we had found and kept a lot of these little outer keels because it's just kind of cool to see these loose. We found a number of younger species like Hildoceras at this site, and so that made our 3rd day of hunting pretty cool because we were able to kind of check off those empty boxes of other species that we didn't get on our first 2 days of collecting. So after a good long hard day of fossil hunting, of course you need a beer and some dinner, we headed over to the Magpie Cafe for their classic fish and chips and, of course, the mushy peas. I tried this local beer and it was okay. Not my top pick, but one that I might give another shot when we return. So our 6th day of hunting, we decided to do some more touristic activities. We walked through the shops in downtown Whitby, and of course we had to scale up the infamous 199 steps on our way up to the Whitby Abbey. This little climb gave us loads of incredible views of the town, offering a glimpse that you really can't see anywhere else in Whitby. So we loved seeing the cityscape, and hey, I think we can see our Airbnb from here. At the top, there's also this really cool old chapel with loads of tombstones in the graveyard. And it's just neat to think about visiting this area and sitting down in the same spot as Bram Stoker when he was first writing Dracula, because you can just truly see this kind of ancient mystery and intrigue across the landscape. The Whitby Abbey had a wonderful museum filled with artifacts and lots of cool cultural history, along with the note on why Ammonites were found in Whitby. So there's a fun little story behind that and St. Hilda. The Abbey itself, kind of a classic look here at the ruins against that gray sky, really giving off those Dracula vibes. The sandstone that they used to create the chapel is now completely weathered and worn away from the wind and the salt spray, and that just really gave the Abbey this incredible, just weathered, in place, ancient look, on top of the fact that it was just a stack of stones at this point. We next took a trip up to the Whitby Museum, which is a small but wonderful museum packed full of fossils and cultural artifacts. They have this incredible wall full of ichthyosaur and pliosaur and plesiosaur remains that have been found locally. And of course, they have case after case after case full of ammonites. This really helped us kind of identify the ammonite species that we had found. We knew some of the famous ones, like Dactylioceras, of course, but we were able to really kind of get down to the species level. Most of these ammonites in these cases are actually holotypes of the species, which, if you're not familiar, a holotype is the literal fossil that is used to describe a species. So whenever a scientist first published, hey, this is Dactylioceras commune, that is the actual ammonite that, was held back in the 1800s when this species was published. So an incredible wealth of unusual and hard to find specimens in this museum. I cannot emphasize that enough. The Whitby Museum also had a lot of cultural artifacts in here, including an amazing gallery of intricately detailed model ships. Our next stop took us to the Whitby Distillery, which was a big ticket item for my bucket list in coming to Whitby. We are gin connoisseurs at this point, thanks to a family member on Tabitha's side. We were able to taste a lot of the gin and some of the rum, and got seated with some locals that just made the experience all the more special. Our seventh day sadly found us departing Whitby and traveling back to London so that we could do some sightseeing at the Natural History Museum. One of the big exhibits that I wanted to visit here was the Treasures Gallery, which houses a number of fossils and modern specimens integral to the formation of science as a field. Kind of jump-started some of the initial discoveries and understandings of our planet. So from this incredible skeleton of a dodo to the world's first flying dinosaur, Archaeopteryx, one of my favorites, we also have the first iguanodon teeth that jump-started the understanding that dinosaurs were on this planet. And just seeing these is cool, and I'm not really a dinosaur guy. We also got to see some ammonites, most likely from the Yorkshire coast, so getting to see those prepped out and sitting in a museum was super, super cool, especially in the Natural History Museum. Also a copy of the first edition of Darwin's On the Origin of Species, this incredibly influential text. Incredible to see this in real life. We also got to see some of Darwin's actual specimens, so all of these very fancy doves and pigeons that he used to propose the original theory of evolution. Next, we headed on down to the Mary Anning Gallery, where we got to see this impressively huge skeleton of a marine reptile that actually came from one of the shorelines that we walked just days before. Lots of beautifully prepped out specimens here, and a great place to actually do some comparative anatomy with finds that you might have collected along the beach. After that, we headed out to sightsee around London, and no sightseeing trip is complete without a double-decker bus. London really decks out the streets this time of year for the holidays, and their light displays are definitely worth a nighttime walk through the city. We passed by this lovely Disney display that just lit up the entire building and had lots of people looking at the ground level displays. And with that, our trip was back on the plane, flying into New York City, and ultimately flying back into our lovely coastline of Charleston. We got to see it right as the sun was setting, and that was just kind of the perfect welcome home after a long trip overseas. What I really enjoyed most about this experience was a different form of fossil collecting. Here in the Lowcountry, we are used to finding the fossils sitting on top of the ground, and we got to experience that over in London and England, but having that added excitement and mystery of, is there anything inside the rock when we split it open, honestly made this trip. When we were flying back, all I could think about was coming back to Whitby. The town was super quiet in November. There was hardly anyone out on the streets. The beaches were practically vacant, and it really just felt like we had this whole city to ourselves, which is something that we don't really get in Charleston. There is no time of year where you get anything to yourself down here in the Lowcountry. So here's that nodule that I found on the first day, and I originally thought that there were 2 Ammonites contained within this because it looked like there was a little outer piece and then that one big main Ammonite. But once I really started prepping this down, it looks like the outer whorl kind of peeled away from the main part of the Ammonite, and this is really just one super big Ammonite inside of a pyrite nodule, which would explain why it was hard to split. So once I kind of prepped all of this material off, that's when I started to see some of those finer details. And it's not completely prepped yet here because the air scribe machine did a good job on it, but we were kind of without the sandblasting machine that'll get some of these tinier specks of rock out of there, and I don't want to damage the Ammonite any further than my first initial pass with the air scribe. Overall, I found the entire experience of hunting for Ammonites to be an incredibly enjoyable and fulfilling one, from the scenery and the hunting, flipping over nodules and cracking them open, to the preparation stage back in the lab, and just that thrill of never knowing what you're going to get on the inside of a rock just kind of scratches an itch in the brain of us humans, I think. So if you want to see some more photos of what these Ammonites look like prepped out more completely and cleanly, be sure to give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram for photos. And if you want to see footage from our next trip across the pond, make sure you're subscribed here to our YouTube channel, where we highlight a lot of shark teeth and other marine mammal fossils throughout the year. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. As always, happy hunting, collect responsibly, and we'll see you next time.